There is a real reason why banks can't stop XRP from replacing them. And look, a lot of YouTube crypto channels, they talk about banks and XRP. They talk about how it is a payment system, how it fits inside the ISO 2022 framework, how it has the infrastructure to power cross-border payments. And yeah, all of that is true. But what nobody is actually talking about, what nobody is really digging into, is the reason why banks are trying to stop it. And more importantly, why they are going to fail. That is what this video is about. Stick with me because by the end of this, the way you look at everything, the lawsuits, the lobbying, the delays, all of it is going to shift completely. Let me start with something that sounds almost too simple. Banks make money on float. That word float is the single most important word in this entire conversation, and almost nobody outside of institutional finance talks about it in the context of XRP. Float is the money that sits in transit, the money that is technically yours or your counterparty's, but is sitting in a correspondent bank account somewhere doing absolutely nothing except generating yield for the institution holding it. Right now, on any given day, somewhere between $3 and $5 trillion is locked up in Nostro and Vostro accounts around the world. $3 to $5 trillion, just sitting there, pre-funded, doing nothing for you, doing everything for them. And here is where it starts to get uncomfortable, because when you understand that number, really let it sit, you start to realize that the current cross-border payment system is not broken, it is working exactly as designed. It is designed to hold your money for as long as legally possible, extract as much yield as possible, and release it to the other side when they absolutely have to. The friction is not a bug, the friction is the product. The 2 to 5 business days for an international wire is not a technology limitation, that is a business model. So now bring XRP into that picture. XRP settles in 3 to 5 seconds. The XRP ledger processes transactions for a fraction of a cent, and because of that speed, banks and financial institutions using XRP do not need to pre-fund Nostro accounts in the destination country. You don't need a pool of euros sitting in Frankfurt waiting for someone in New York to send a wire. You settle in real time. You use XRP as the bridge asset, and you release it on the other side. The Nostro account becomes unnecessary, and with it, the float disappears. Now you understand why banks are fighting this. This is not philosophical. This is not ideological. This is billions of dollars in annual yield evaporating overnight if XRP gets full adoption. The Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, estimated that the global banking system holds roughly $10 trillion in Nostro-Vostro liquidity at any given time, when you account for all currencies and all corridors. $10 trillion in idle, pre-funded liquidity. Even a conservative yield of 1% on that is $100 billion a year. A year! And XRP threatens every single dollar of that. So, when a major bank lobbies against clear crypto regulation, when certain institutions fund think tanks that publish reports questioning the viability of distributed ledger technology for payments, when you see coordinated media narratives about XRP being a security, being controlled by Ripple, being centralized, now you know what you're actually looking at. You're looking at $100 billion a year defending itself. That is what this fight has always been about. Now, let's talk about ISO 2022, because this is where it gets really interesting, and this is where I think even seasoned XRP holders sometimes miss the full picture. ISO 2022 is not just a messaging standard. People keep framing it like it's just an upgrade to how financial messages are formatted, like it's just Swift moving from one data format to another. And yes, technically, at the surface level, that is what it is. But what ISO 2022 actually does, structurally, is it creates a common language for financial messaging that allows different payment systems to talk to each other with a level of data richness that the old MT messaging format simply could not support. The old Swift MT format, the one banks have been using for decades, is basically a telegraph. It sends minimal data. It sends an amount, a sender, a receiver, a rough purpose code. That's it. ISO 2022 sends everything. Full legal entity identifiers, structured remittance information, purpose codes that are actually meaningful, end-to-end transaction references that survive the entire payment chain. Why does that matter for XRP? Because the XRP ledger already supports rich data fields. It was built for this. The ledger has always been capable of carrying the kind of structured data that ISO 2022 demands. While the rest of the banking system is scrambling to upgrade infrastructure that in some cases is 40 years old to become ISO 2022 compliant, XRP ledger is already there. SWIFT set a deadline. November 2025 was the critical migration milestone where correspondent banks were required to be capable of receiving and processing ISO 2022 formatted messages. And what happened? Extensions, delays, pushback from member institutions who couldn't get their legacy systems upgraded in time. The very same banks arguing that XRP is not ready, that blockchain is not enterprise grade, that decentralized systems can't handle institutional volume, those same banks can't upgrade a messaging format on schedule. And here's the thing that I keep coming back to, the thing that I think doesn't get said enough. The ISO 2022 migration is happening in no vacuum. It's happening at the exact same time that central banks around the world are piloting central bank digital currencies. It's happening at the exact same time that the BIS is running its mBridge project, testing multi-currency cbdc settlement across real central bank balance sheets. It's happening at the exact same time that Ripple has been quietly, systematically building out a network of payment corridors, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Latin America, using XRP and on-demand liquidity, which is now rebranded as Ripple Payments. All of these things are happening simultaneously, and the overlap is not a coincidence. The infrastructure is being laid. You're watching it in real time. Now, I want to get into something that I genuinely believe most XRP holders haven't fully processed yet, and it's probably the most important thing in this entire video. There are actual central banks, not commercial banks, central banks that have been quietly testing or at minimum seriously evaluating XRP corridors. Not XRP as a speculative asset, XRP as a settlement layer. The Bank of England's RTGS renewal program, which has been running for years now, explicitly included interoperability with distributed ledger technology in its design requirements. The European Central Bank's Target 2 successor, the T2 system that went live in 2023, was built with ISO 2022 as its native messaging standard and was designed with future interoperability with external settlement systems as an architectural consideration. The Monetary Authority of Singapore, the MAS, has been one of the most aggressive central banks in the world in testing DLT-based settlement through Project Ubin and its successors. And then there's the Saudi Central Bank, SAMA, which was an early Ripple partner, and the UAE's central bank, and the National Bank of Georgia, and Bhutan's central bank partnered directly with Ripple. These are not fringe institutions. These are sovereign monetary authorities. And they're not testing XRP because it's interesting. They test things because they're looking for solutions to real operational problems. The Nostro Vostro problem is a real operational problem. The correspondent banking de-risking problem, where major banks have been pulling out of correspondent relationships with smaller emerging market banks, leaving entire countries functionally cut off from the international payment system, that's a real problem. XRP solves both of those problems structurally. You don't need a pre-funded Nostro account if you can bridge through XRP. You don't need a correspondent banking relationship if you have a direct on-ramp to the XRP ledger. And that's what I want you to sit with for a moment, because this is the part where the anger and the confidence meet. The banks that have been fighting XRP the hardest, the institutions that have been most vocal about distributed ledger technology being a solution looking for a problem, those same institutions are watching their correspondent banking networks shrink. They're watching their Nostro yields come under pressure from a rate environment that won't stay elevated forever. They're watching ISO 2022 compliance deadlines force them to rebuild infrastructure. And in the background, quietly, the alternative is there, fully built, already running, settling in seconds. Let's talk about the SEC case, because I know this community knows it inside out, but I want to frame it slightly differently than most people do. The Ripple versus SEC case, the partial summary judgment in July 2023, where Judge Annalisa Torres ruled that XRP sold on exchanges to retail investors was not a security, that ruling was significant not just for what it said legally, but for what it exposed about the process.
The SEC, under Gary Gensler, had been pursuing a regulation by enforcement strategy, essentially using legal uncertainty as a weapon. If you can't get a clear regulatory ruling, if every token lives in a gray zone where the regulator can claim it might be a security, then institutional adoption stays frozen. Banks can't build on top of an asset that might get designated a security tomorrow. That was the strategy. Keep it gray, keep it frozen, buy time. That Torres ruling cracked that strategy open. Not completely, not permanently, but it cracked it. And when the SEC, under the subsequent administration, began walking back some of its most aggressive crypto positions, when Ripple reached a settlement, when the framework started to shift, what you saw was not the banks suddenly embracing XRP. What you saw was the gray zone shrinking. And a shrinking gray zone means the next layer of institutional hesitation starts to lose its justification. Because here's the thing about institutional adoption. Banks don't move on conviction, they move on compliance. They need regulatory clarity before they can put something on a balance sheet, before they can route customer funds through it, before they can build it into treasury operations. The legal fight was never really about whether XRP is a security. It was about whether the regulatory environment would ever become clear enough for institutions to move. And it's becoming clear. Slowly, frustratingly slowly, but it is moving. Now, I want to bring this back to something very concrete, because I think the abstract case for XRP is well understood in this community. What I want to focus on is the timing, because here's what I think is actually happening right now in 2025 and 2026. You have the ISO 20022 migration creating forced infrastructure upgrades across the global banking system. You have Swift's own connector service, which Swift launched as a direct response to the DLT payments threat, struggling to gain traction because it still runs on the same correspondent banking rails it always has, just with prettier data formatting. You have Ripple Payments processing live, real volume across corridors that Swift has historically dominated. You have cbdc development cycle creating new interoperability requirements that legacy systems were not designed to meet. And you have XRP sitting at the intersection of all of those things, the asset that settles in seconds, the ledger that is already ISO 20022 compatible, the network that has live institutional relationships in markets that Swift's correspondent banking network has been contracting from. This is not a situation where XRP needs to fight its way in. This is a situation where the architecture of the system is being rebuilt around it, whether the incumbents like it or not. Swift processed somewhere around 5 billion messages in 2023. The XRP ledger processes roughly 1 to 1.5 million transactions per day currently. The scale comparison sounds like Swift wins, but that framing is wrong because Swift messages and XRP transactions are not the same thing. A single Swift message represents a payment that takes 3 days and costs $40 in fees and ties up pre-funded capital the entire time. A single XRP transaction represents final settlement in 3 seconds for a fraction of a cent with zero pre-funded capital required. You are not comparing volume, you are comparing architectures, and one of those architectures belongs to the 21st century and one of them belongs to 1973. Here's what I find almost poetic about all of this. JP Morgan built JP Morgan. Bank of America has hundreds of blockchain patents, including patents that reference the XRP ledger specifically. Goldman Sachs has been involved in digital asset custody infrastructure. HSBC has been running tokenization pilots on distributed ledgers. These are the same institutions whose lobbying arms have been most active in pushing for restrictive crypto regulation. They are building the future with one hand and trying to slow it down with the other. And the reason is not complicated. They need time. Time to build their own walled garden versions of what XRP already does. Time to figure out how to capture the efficiency gains of DLT settlement while still maintaining enough control over the infrastructure to protect their fee revenue. But here's the problem with that strategy: the network effect. The XRP ledger has been running continuously since 2012. It has never had a successful hack. It has never had a double spend. It has processed billions of transactions. The liquidity pools are built. The on and off ramps are built. The institutional relationships are built. You do not replicate that by filing patents. You do not replicate that by running a pilot program. You replicate that by running a live network for over a decade under every conceivable market condition. JP Morgan Coin does not have that. No bank-built alternative has that. And by the time any of them could get close, the window for the incumbents to define the new infrastructure on their own terms will have closed. That is the confidence part of this. That is why holders who have been in this for years, who have watched the lawsuits and the FUD and the delays and the price suppression, that is why they are still holding, not because of blind faith, because the technical case has not weakened. The regulatory environment is improving. The institutional testing is happening. The ISO 20022 migration is forcing the very infrastructure upgrades that make XRP integration easier. Every one of the conditions that needed to be true for XRP to matter at an institutional level is either already true or in the process of becoming true. And look, I'm not going to sit here and give you a price target. I'm not going to tell you when. The when is genuinely unknowable, and anyone who tells you otherwise is guessing. But the what is not unknowable. The what is a $3 to $5 trillion nostro vostro system that generates somewhere between $50 and $100 billion a year in float revenue for the banking system, is structurally threatened by an asset that eliminates the need for pre-funded correspondent accounts entirely. The what is the global financial messaging system is being rebuilt around a standard that the XRP ledger was already built to support. The what is central banks in multiple jurisdictions are actively testing DLT-based settlement because they have sovereign-level problems that legacy infrastructure cannot solve. That is the what, and the what is not going away. So here's the question I want to leave you with, and I want you to actually think about this rather than just answer it reflexively in the comments, because I do think it's genuinely open. If XRP achieves full integration as the dominant bridge asset for cross-border payments, if it becomes the rails, does it matter who controls the on and off ramps? Because here's the tension. The XRP ledger is decentralized, the asset is decentralized, but the payment corridors, the ODL integrations, the institutional relationships, those are being built by Ripple, a private company, and Ripple will monetize that. They already are. So the question is not whether XRP wins, the question is, if XRP wins, who actually wins with it? Is it the retail holders who have been carrying this for years? Is it the institutions who adopt it last after all the risk has been absorbed by everyone else? Or is it Ripple itself, which holds a significant portion of the total XRP supply in escrow? That tension is real. It's not FUD. It's a legitimate structural question about how value accrues in a two-layer system where the asset is open but the business is closed. And I don't think there's a clean answer. I think it depends on how the regulatory framework evolves, on whether Ripple's escrow releases become a sustained source of sell pressure, on whether the on-demand liquidity corridors create enough buy pressure to absorb that sell. These are the variables that actually determine what your XRP holding is worth when this thing finally moves. Not the technology, not the partnerships, the distribution of value. I've been sitting with that question for a while now, and I still don't have a clean answer. And I think if you're honest with yourself, neither do you. That's not a reason to sell. That's a reason to think harder about what you're actually holding and what the realistic scenarios look like. Because the banks are not going to stop XRP. That ship has sailed. The technology is too good. The problem it solves is too real. The infrastructure is too far along. But winning does not automatically mean every XRP holder wins equally. And that is the conversation I think this community needs to be having. Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. Do you think retail holders get the upside when institutional adoption fully kicks in? Or do you think the institutions and Ripple absorb most of the value while retail gets whatever is left over after the dust settles? Because I've seen both sides of that argument, and I'm not sure which one I believe yet. If this video made you think differently about something you thought you already understood, hit that like button. Not for the algorithm. Actually, for the algorithm, I'm not going to lie to you. The like button genuinely affects who sees this, and this community needs more people who are thinking at this level rather than just chasing pumps. Subscribe if you want the kind of breakdown that doesn't talk down to you and doesn't treat you like you just discovered crypto last week. And share this with whoever in your life is still asking why you hold XRP, because this is the answer that most of them have never heard. Stay sharp.